My name is Elena Cross, and I was never meant to stand in the shadows of powerful men, but the city taught me that shadows are the only safe place when you carry the kind of truths I carry. You see, people think power is built with money, with influence, with names etched into skyscrapers and gold plaques on office doors. But I learned young that true power is silence, the kind that waits, the kind that listens, the kind that knows how to keep a secret until the world is ready for it to bleed out. And I have been keeping secrets for so long that I sometimes wonder if my own voice has been swallowed by them, but tonight, for once, the silence will speak through me, and you will hear every dark corner of it. It started years ago, when I was nothing more than a quiet archivist working in the city's legal division, a ghost in the filing rooms, someone who saw everything and was seen by no one. That's where power hides best, not in the glass towers, but in the archives, in the paper trails no one bothers to follow. I had access to things most people would kill for, contracts that were never meant to exist, signatures that belonged to men who swore their hands were clean, files stamped confidential but carrying the weight of ruined lives. And I didn't just read them. I remembered. I studied. I fed them into the silence I carried, and silence never forgets. I wasn't supposed to find his name, but when I did, something inside me woke up. Richard Hale, CEO, philanthropist, a man the city bowed to. To the world, he was the hero of every charity gala, the shining face on billboards about progress and growth. But in the files I held in my hands, Richard was something else entirely, a predator in a suit, a man whose empire was built on broken families, silenced voices, and people buried in contracts that stole more than their money. My family was one of them. My brother Daniel, who trusted the wrong deal, who believed in the wrong man, ended up dead because of a signature Richard Hale denied ever making. And when I found the proof in those archives, I felt the silence around me thicken, as though it had been waiting all this time to remind me of my purpose. For years, I did nothing. That's the hardest part to confess. I let him walk stages, shake hands with governors, smile for cameras, while I walked past his name in every newspaper headline and pretended I was small, invisible. But silence is patient, and so was I. The city thought I was nobody, and that's exactly what I needed them to believe. Because when you are nobody, you can go anywhere. You can see everything. And you can collect pieces of a puzzle that one day will fall into place. I began to study him like one studies a sickness. Where he went. Who he met. How he moved. He had routines like every powerful man does, and behind the polished mask, he was careless. A mistress in the penthouse he kept hidden under another name. Off-the-record meetings in hotels where contracts were traded for loyalty. Shell companies hidden in offshore accounts. Every piece of evidence I gathered was a thread, and soon, my silence became a web. But revenge is never just about evidence. It's about patience. It's about learning to wear your own mask. I went to work each day, blending into the quiet halls, smiling politely at people who never remembered my name, while at night, I stitched together the life of a man who thought he was untouchable. Some nights I thought I could hear Daniel's voice, whispering that he was proud, that justice was close. But other nights the whispers turned darker, asking if I was sure this wasn't just obsession. And maybe it was. Maybe I didn't want justice anymore. Maybe I wanted him to suffer the way my family had suffered, not quickly, not publicly, but slowly, with the weight of everything he had buried pressing down until he broke. So I set the stage. Not in a courtroom, not in the papers. That would have been too clean. Richard Hale built his kingdom in the shadows, and it was in the shadows I would take it apart. I leaked fragments at first. Anonymous tips to journalists who didn't know they were only scratching the surface. Files slipped into the hands of activists who shouted into the void, thinking they'd uncovered corruption by chance. But every piece led to another, and all roads pointed back to him, even when the public didn't see it yet. And all the while, I stayed silent. The city began to turn. Protests outside his glass tower. Headlines that grew sharper. Whispers at his board meetings. I could almost taste his paranoia through the walls of his empire. He changed his routines. He looked over his shoulder. He started to see ghosts in every shadow, but he never saw me. That's the beauty of silence. You can stand inches from a man's life and he'll never notice until it's too late. But I didn't want him ruined by the world. That would have been too easy. I wanted him ruined by himself. So I planted seeds where he would find them. A file on his desk that should have been shredded years ago. An anonymous letter slipped under his door with names he thought were buried. A photograph from his past appearing where it had no right to be. I made him question his own mind, his own memory. I made him doubt the loyalty of the men who dined at his table. And the more he unraveled, the more the city began to watch. I remember the night it finally broke him. Rain on the glass of his office, the city lights blurred like bruises in the distance. He was alone, or so he thought, staring at the papers spread across his desk, his empire bleeding out in black and white. His hands shook as he poured himself another drink, muttering words no one could hear. That's when I stepped out of the silence. "Richard," I said, and his glass froze in his hand. He turned, his eyes wide, and for the first time, the great Richard Hale looked small. I told him who I was, though I think he already knew. The girl in the archives. The sister of the man he destroyed. The silence that had been watching him all these years. He tried to laugh, to dismiss me, but the sound caught in his throat when I laid the final file on his desk. His signature. His denial exposed. The proof that Daniel's death had his fingerprints all over it. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. I simply watched him crumble under the weight of a truth he could no longer bury. And when he reached for his phone, when his lips formed the name of a lawyer or a guard, I slid it away. "There's no one left to save you," I whispered. "Only silence now." The city awoke the next morning to headlines that shattered its illusions. Richard Hale found dead in his office, his empire collapsing overnight. Suicide, they said. Stress. Paranoia. A tragic end to a powerful man. But I knew the truth. He wasn't killed by stress or by paranoia. He was killed by silence. My silence. And now here I am, telling you this not as a confession, not even as a warning, but as a reminder. Power is not what they show you in the light. Power is what waits in the dark, what listens, what remembers. My name is Elena Cross, and I am the keeper of silence. And silence always remembers.